and we are ready to start. So for today, my name's Tyson Bettino, and I'm happy to help welcome Nate and Nanako. And today we're going to talk about marketing localization in Japan. So first we have Nanako Aramaki, and Nanako, I'll let you introduce yourself. But the reason I chose Nanako is if you are living. If you haven't discovered her yet, we've added her LinkedIn here. Heiken, you can post that in the chat, Nanako's LinkedIn profile. But Nanako posts really amazing content about localizing in Japan. On her LinkedIn, she's done like 40 or something posts. My team have copy and pasted all of them. We have them all in one document because they're so awesome.
Oh, well, I'm honored. Thank you, Tyson.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so please
Yeah.
introduce yourself.
So, hi, everybody. I'm Nanako Aramaki. I am Japanese Canadian. I was born in Tokyo, grew up in Canada. I started my marketing career in Canada, and then I moved to Berlin and London, and now I'm here in Japan, back to where I came from. And it's been a wild journey. I have been loving it. And maybe because like I am Japanese, but because I've only been around for a few years, all the things that I'm noticing, all the different culture gaps and the differences in marketing, it's all still really fresh to me. So I've been posting things every week. I did take a break for 2 weeks after my 50th post. I think it was well-deserved break. But
Yeah.
yeah, basically, I help companies, global companies to localize. A lot of them tend to be B2B because we specialize in content.
I see.
But it's been really rewarding to bridge the Japanese teams with their global counterparts because I think a lot of times the Japanese teams are not being heard. So I'm kind of like their cheerleader.
It's definitely needed and cool. Yep. So, and Heiken has put Nanako's LinkedIn profile in the chat.
Thank
And
you.
next we have Nathan Hoernig of Humble Bunny. And the reason I chose Nathan is whenever I have a SEO question that I don't know the answer to, Nathan's the first person I go to. So, and other things when I'm in trouble and I need someone who like really knows the nitty-gritty and like how to get it done, Nathan's my go-to person. And I don't have too many of those. And Nathan's one of them. So I had to get Nathan on. And yeah, off to you, Nathan.
Cool. Thanks for having me. I'm a little sick, so if I'm clearing myself or something, apologies in advance. But thanks everyone for being here. I'm Nate. I came to Japan in 2007, so I've been here quite a while now. My grandmother is Japanese, so I'm a quarter. So that's kind of where I started becoming interested in the culture and came to Japan, did the English teaching thing for a little while. Transitioned into like a freelance graphic designer position, which is where Humble Bunny started, just me. Um, some of you know the story maybe, but the first year's revenue was like 24,000 yen or something like that. So definitely like a scrappy start 15 years ago. And then yeah, over time I kind of accidentally created a marketing company, and now we have a team of 15 people, and yeah. So our vision is that, as marketers and as companies in Japan, we can actually be successful here if we want to, right? The problem is a lot of companies are having trouble figuring out how to create decision and conversion in the Japanese market. So that's kind of our vision and our mission, is to simplify that for um, businesses and for other marketers in Japan. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I remember the first logo.
Yeah, the first logo was a like an illustration of a rabbit. It was cute. I thought it was cute. My wife thought it was ugly, which hurt my feelings. And then we changed to a logo a few, a few years later, which is on the screen now. But yeah,
Very cool. So I remember the humble beginnings.
yeah.
For myself, I think maybe most people since you're here, you probably have heard of me, so I don't need to go into my introduction. For my case, I do focus on revenue growth for startups and small businesses. For the marketing agency side, we do websites, AdWords, and SEO and MEO in Japanese and English. For SEO, we don't do it in Japanese, and I would 100% refer you to Nate. But we can do B2B and B2C. For B2B businesses, we have sales courses on how to make a Japanese sales deck and how to do trade shows, which has had pretty good success. And we also have for CEOs, we have a peer coaching group on how to grow your revenue, where let's say your goals for the month, and we talk about your revenue growth challenges and we solve it together. And it's a pretty good group. And so we have 4 members, five including myself. And we're looking for probably 2 more people for our peer revenue growth group with scaling your company. And in September, I just launched a SmartStart, and we can help you with SmartStart is our incorporation support. So if you need a business manager visa, GKKK branch office, bank account, we can set all of that up for you. Since September, we've been incorporating 3 companies a month. And then we have Smart Boost. After you start with us, we can help you get a government subsidy and also government-backed loan. But for government-backed loan, it's a little bit trickier, but we can help with that. And Smart Growth, and this is scaling your company side. If you go to Smart Start Japan, we can help you incorporate. And I think one person we're incorporating is in the audience right now. And Heiken, I'll let you put those links. So cool. Thank you for everyone for listening to our introductions. And we're going to jump into localization. So first topic is, why is Japan different? And for this one, I'm going to pass it off to Nate first. So Nate, I guess the first part why Japan is different is it's a high context culture. But could you please tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think that the majority of businesses are really having a hard time converting. And I think the other marketers in the audience as well can understand that it's a little bit more difficult to hit KPIs and to hit the performance numbers that we want to hit. I think the reality is that Japan's just a little bit more of a conservative market. We all know this, especially those of us who are living here. So we kind of have to come across conversion from a slightly different angle. You know, there's not going to be like a single one trick that's really going to set everything off for brands. And we've worked with we're edging up on about 100 brands now over the years, and we've basically been able to identify that, you know, you really have to rework your product messaging and your brand messaging to come at it from different angles. And there's a little analogy here about ice skating, and I think it works pretty well. I'm a little bit of an analogy nerd. I think that my team members are kind of frustrated with me because I speak in so much analogy. Sorry guys, but I think it makes sense. You know, it's like you have to win the medal with a variety of different approaches. You have to be well versed and capable in multiple areas, and it's a formula. It's not just a one-off thing. And if you throw a backflip in at the end, which maybe doesn't fit the aesthetic appeal of a more conservative panel of judges, you might not necessarily win out. So that is the nature of Japan for sure. Yeah, it's a little bit more of a nod to a little bit more of a comment towards how to get better decision, which we have a framework for, which I can talk about if we have an opportunity, but as opposed to the high context culture specifically. So, Nanako, I don't know if you have any other comments or ideas on your side.
I think if we're strictly just talking about high context culture, I mean, if you live here, and especially if you look like me and you're treated like a Japanese person 100%, it's so clear that you have to read people's minds. And
Mm.
and I think that's why there's such a huge emphasis on text information, because communication style is so different in this country. You know, it's about what people aren't saying. And so what is true and concrete is what's written. And so I think a lot of people do a lot of that research and gain information so that they can equip themselves before they can speak about something or make a decision in our case, because we're talking about marketing. And so you just have to really understand how different the Japanese people think and live and make decisions. Uh, my experience has been that a lot of foreign companies, they underestimate this difference. And that leads them to assume that some things are done similarly in this country. And that's where they fail. And they don't realize to what extent they need to localize.
So one ex I think it's kind of related to localization, but I think here it says, direct and aggressive marketing styles often don't resonate. So I've heard one thing was I think you would never criticize your competitor, right, in Japan.
Yeah, I think it's seen as like not it it's kind of goes against the politeness in Japanese culture and not being um, honest. And I think people really value honor in this country too. So they want to fight a good fight, a fair fight. And
Hmm?
And
would it be helpful, Tyson, to let everybody know to mute their mics?
yeah, I think everyone's almost, I think just the new. So hey, Ken, I think next time we need to set up the automatic mute when people enter. We can do that next time. Yeah, so yeah, that's so I got distracted, but yes, I think that's one. Is there any other types of maybe like direct or like let's say aggressive marketing styles maybe in the West that isn't done in Japan?
I mean, Nate, maybe you know better because you're more of an ad expert than I am, but just even based on observation, I've noticed that a lot of ad copy is less aggressive. So I have
Yeah.
a lot of clients who tell me, like, why don't you have more CTAs? And like we can add them in, but they actually don't get selected through AI on Google because Japanese people want more information. And even if you tell them like, oh, download now or call us today, it's like they're not there. They're not going to.
Sorry, you muted Nanako.
I just gave a long speech.
Just the last 5 seconds. Just the last 5 seconds.
Oh, okay. Okay. I think that even I don't know what I said anymore. Even if you tell people to do something like a call to action, um, I feel like Japanese people don't want to be told what to do. They want to make the decision. That's why on a lot of advertisements in Japan, it'll say like this campaign is running now, like campaign 実施中, right? Instead of saying like call us today. It's like
Gotcha.
you give them the information and let them decide. It's not like forcing people to do something.
You often like on advertisements as well, you'll see like a graphic where it shows you what to search for in
Yeah, I
Google.
was just thinking that.
And so it's like we'll tell you how to get there, but we won't get you directly there. I think it's there's always things that you need to test, like and try out. I think different clients and different target markets, and as the years go on as well, I think there's an interesting opportunity to potentially try some of these things or try them in a slightly different way, like the Ryanair and Wendy's sort of approach overseas to social content where they're just like trash talking the people who comment and stuff like that. Um, it's one of those things where I think it's easy to turn that off, but I think if you get the right client as marketers, we need to kind of see what's working and how to, and when things are not working, how to make them work. So there is a little bit of a romance and kind of excitement for me around the idea of saying, you can't do it. You certainly can't do it like the West, but what would be the localized version of that approach, sort of like underhand, not underhand, but like I can't remember the word, but like you show that you're better than your competitor by kind of subconsciously actually complimenting a part of them. Like this kind of technique, like I think that like um would be interesting. I don't have an example to be fair, but I'm just encouraging the idea of saying we do have to be really careful. Um and certain things we know are not going to work. We have to work with Japanese people. Um for sure. But then that balance of like, as multilingual marketers, what can we try, right? Yeah.
So, and I'll finish off with one example of let's say the context, and it's building on what Nate mentioned, where you wouldn't directly, but Money Forward, the B2B accounting software, I love their sales deck, or like I just study Japanese sales decks because I love to study it. But one thing they do is really cool is they don't really say like you need to use this software, but they show this graph like in 19, let's say 90, this many companies use cloud software, 1994, 98, 2000, let's say 2021, 22, 23, and you keep seeing the number of people who don't use cloud software decreasing. And so like rather than telling like, you need to use it now, they make you feel that pressure like everybody else is using it and it's increasing every year. And you're the only, they don't say it directly, but they're implying that you're the only one who's not registering. So you need to jump on it. So I thought that was a very crafty way of putting indirect pressure on someone to start using cloud software.
So maybe the takeaway on this one for everyone is high context is all about, Nanako said it perfectly earlier, but like the things that are what's being said between the lines and what's not being said, right? So maybe like, individually it's hard for us to maybe creatively come up with the ideas by ourselves. But if we have a team and we can bring the team together and we can do a bit of a creative session, maybe think about when you're doing your messaging, what you would want to say as a foreigner because you feel like this might have a solid effect in Japan, and then work with other people to get creative ideation to come up with an implicit message that conveys that concept in a more implicit way and a less direct way, um, and then test that.
And so what I'll do is, audience, we have two more points, and I think related to what we've talked about, I'll give some time for a couple questions because probably some of you might have some questions. And for Nanako, I want to ask you about the language nuances.
Yeah, for sure. So we all know how complicated and complex the Japanese language is if you're learning it or speak it, especially in, well, B2C as well, but I feel like you can get away a lot more with B2C. You can have a casual tone for the brand, but in B2B, it has to be quite serious and polite, and any tone that goes against, the usual standards of customer service in Japan, it's going to come across the wrong way. And yeah, that's how you lose trust with your audience. And so if you're directly translating, it's not going to work well in Japan. And
And
it's the level of keigo too, right? It's not simple. It's not just one level of politeness. And that's where it's really an art form, like which words you choose, where do you turn them into kanji? If it's too much kanji, it's going to come across too conservative or traditional. And so, yeah, there's a lot to consider.
and I guess maybe I'll add one point if Nate can add after. Yeah, I think one language nuance that's interesting is so we often make websites for language schools, and just the word kodomo, like child, it's do you use it in katakana? Do you do it with the ko in hiragana and the domo in kanji? Like we often have to think about like from the SEO point of view, we do ko with the child with the kanji. But then if we're referring to, I think little kids, sometimes if you use the katakana, it's a bit cuter. And so like even just this one word like kodomo, we have to kind of really think about the nuance just to get it right for the customer. And yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. But Nathan, do you have any thoughts on language nuances?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think both of you are spot on. My idea was actually the one that you just said, Tyson, that
Oh,
came,
sorry.
that came to mind. So, yeah, I think, yeah.
And Nanako for consumer preferences.
Yeah, I mean, I just mentioned customer service, but I think that kind of leads everything in this country. The standards are so high, and it's not just the service, it's the quality of products, and also the value perception. I think that Japanese consumers expect more for the same price elsewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, you can say the same thing, right, Nate? Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
people are expecting a lot more free stuff. And that's why people work so much overtime here, because a lot of it is expected. That's not part of the invoice.
There's a lot of overhead and we obviously we work with Japanese brands and global brands. And we give global brands a little bit of a discount on our PM and admin fees because we know that generally it's going to be a little bit um less less intensive on the admin side. I remember um quite a few years back we were working with Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola has a bottling company, and there were two bottling companies in Japan, primarily, East and West. East was our client, and West was they had another vendor, a Japanese, purely Japanese vendor. And I remember going to a meeting, and it was a really, really simple talking point, very simple, very subtle. But the West team's agency was running that, and they brought they made a deck and they printed it out. Um, and it was so formalized. Everything was so, there was just so much extra work done just to really get through one question, you know? Like, but yeah, I mean, I think we're all people who live here, we feel it, right? That's just the added level of energy and uh and process kind of that Japanese people are used to, right? So, which can feel very unfamiliar and um, almost inefficient, right? But because Japan is much more of a relationship-driven culture, how do you define efficiency, right? Like if you're putting energy into um, prolonging the relationship by virtue of being people-oriented, then if you get an extra 6 months out of the relationship, then maybe that's efficient, right? So um, yeah.
So I'll give the audience, maybe if anyone has any questions related to what we discussed, you could put in the chat. And if it is related, I will ask Nate and Nanako. Before and as you kind of think about that, I have one question for Nate and Nanako. What are some ways that maybe foreign brands can earn trust through their marketing?
Nanako, you want to go?
Sure. Um, well, the basic one is to not use AI translation, I suppose, like someone mentioned in the comments. Um, I think we have the same sort of judgment when we receive like an email or we see a website that is not in perfect English. I think, do we automatically think, oh, we can't trust this company? Looks ayashi, right? And the Japanese people are the same, you know. If they see a website that doesn't have perfect Japanese in natural Japanese, and the differences are so subtle. And I'm really fortunate to work with some of the best writers and editors in Japan. And the way they approach copywriting is so incredibly complicated and very educational for me. And there's just so much to consider. And even the slightest changes will make a native speaker think, oh, that's strange. You would never say that in this context. Or you wouldn't use that kanji there. Or what's that punctuation doing there, right? And so even those little things, and then you're asking somebody for their personal information to download a document, they're not going to put in their personal information if they think even for the slightest bit that they can't trust the website. So
Okay.
yeah, have perfect Japanese.
And I guess in Nanako, your case, some of the brands you're helping, I mean, they're really going like, they're trying to get a person high up in the company to give their personal information. But do you find that it gets even, I would say, more komakai at that higher level when you're dealing with, maybe getting like a senior level person to give you personal details?
I think it depends. I mean, I've never analyzed a client's like CRM data, but in Japan, generally speaking, you're not going to have those managers downloading those documents, right? It's all the shtappa people in the same department. And so you're not going to have to worry about that hurdle. Those decision makers make the decision in the meeting room. I
Which
don't
is
know if you agree, Nate.
interesting because it means that you have to define getting trust in two different ways, right? Like just hooking into what you were saying, right? Like if you've got manager level or potentially below that are the people who are getting entered into your CRM, then how do you establish trust with them from a digital lens? But if there's no way for you to access the people higher up in the chain, then trust is potentially going to come from relationships and introductions and thereby more analog conversation, right? So trust is definitely not a a single, there's not a single, silver bullet for trust. You have to think about maybe establishing trust digitally on that first level and then establishing trust individually in a more personal way on the higher levels. Um, yeah. I think trust is definitely something you have to, if we're talking just digitally, even at that level, you have to approach it from many different angles. Um, yeah, we use a framework internally at Humble Bunny called Localize, and there are 8 different angles by which we try to evaluate the message, and we say, hey, if we can develop a message around these different talking points, then we're more likely to elicit trust and more likely to get the decision or the commitment that we're looking for. So
We got a couple of good questions, and I think we'll just keep it at those two. But I think one question is think kind of how we mentioned about, I think probably the Kodomo example, but I think their question is how can maybe they use English in a little bit to have a positive impact? So like mixing some English with their Japanese. Do you have any thoughts on that?
English is still fashionable in some ways, I guess, right? That's like sort of the old Japanese marketing adage is it's like um it's fashionable to be there. If you use it for anything functional, which you can, it's very limited. It has to be very easy to understand, very simple. The fact that Japanese people are not nearly as good at English as they should be relative to their economic stance in the world, it can be risky. Um, so yeah, we've tested English alongside Japanese in a number of different applications, whether it's ads or e-commerce sales, these sorts of things. And the results when we analyze that data is very, very much leaning towards Japanese as a better former, right? But it's one of those things that we continue to test across different industries and different product offerings. So yeah.
How about
Yeah.
yourself?
I think I saw somewhere that the English literacy rate in Japan is actually declining with the younger generations. Is that really true? Because I feel like with like Netflix and everyone watching international shows, like it should be improving, but is the education system failing us here? Because I feel like it should be getting better, but I know that previous generations ago, even like Japanese prime ministers used to be fluent in English, and now they don't speak English. So something's going wrong in terms of English education. But just based off of what everyone around me says and designs, they think English looks cool. And because they're familiar with Japanese and they don't really understand everything in English, or they understand some, right? Basic English, depending on what words you use, like it can elicit, emotions with very few um, characters, I guess. Um, but my designer always wants to use English to break up all the kanji and the Japanese. Apparently, design-wise, it's favorable as well.
So we would at one coin English. I would mainly use English sometimes. I think it's easier for us because we're an English language school, but it would mainly be used to kind of like emphasize a point, like try harder, try hard.
Yeah.
And it would be like one word or two word combinations, and would use it to emphasize the point.
Yeah. But as soon as it's a sentence, no one's going to understand
Yeah, no, no.
it.
It's the two word rule. Anything above that, we need to have a group discussion.
Yeah.
It's like the budget. It's above a certain amount. And we had another good question. It was so for the both of you, how do you advise your clients on choosing localization of their existing content or developing original content for Japan?
I have lots to say, but Nanako, you can go first if you want to.
Um, Oftentimes we don't have the privilege to create new content for our clients depending on their budget and resources. So that we don't have a choice. We have to take what they have, or they have really strict global brand guidelines where we have to use certain assets. If we have really intelligent clients that are tuned in and understand the importance of localization in Japan, that's when they give us, freedom to, within the brand guidelines, choose Japanese assets or create new customer testimonials, or even, have a video shoot, photo shoot in Japan with Japanese talent or Japanese customers or whatever, which is unique to Japan and their brand in Japan. And I think that's so important if you want to properly penetrate this market.
Yeah, Nanako's speaking to dreams right now. We 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 have obviously very similar experiences. I think that like when you're first coming into the market, when you're smaller, when you don't have that much budget, there's nothing wrong with having like your minimum viable product be um like a well localized version of existing content, right? But the reality is that, you know, the majority of brands are doing that and then stopping because they say we're localized. Okay, where are the results, right? But educated, um, educated brands understand that, if the Japanese people are more conservative, they're less likely to take a risk on your brand as a new brand in the market or something like that. They realize that the presentation of information needs to be done in different ways, right? So, um, a good way to think about it is most global brands are fairly light on their marketing language and their overall body of copy. But you might need to like 2x or 3x that, right? Like present the same features or benefits or whatnot in two or three different ways, um, focusing on different aspects of said feature and benefit. Um, and also just produce and develop more things to say, you know? A few examples. A lot of brands are not using something called agitation, right? They don't use things like data or negative emotion to sort of instigate a emotional response or to create that sense of, oh yeah, that's me, you know? Bring that into your copy, right? Or into your marketing materials, right? If you don't have it. Or, oh, we have a couple testimonials, right? But um, maybe there's a way to do video testimonials. Like we need to be expanding and creatively saying, okay, we got this one piece of content, and we've localized it as a step one, but now we're in phase two. Now we need to start focusing on where conversion is going to come from. Let's create two more versions of that message with different media types, or let's create new ones, right? New ideas. So ultimately, until us as marketers decide to make that jump from localized existing content to expanded content and and attacking the messaging from more angles, we can't really expect a conservative Japanese consumer to make a decision on our brand. I think it's just too hard. I think it's just the nature of the market.
Yeah, I think it's have you had any ways of kind of maybe help explaining to them the importance, or is it kind of something that maybe has to not work first and they'll finally be open to it? But do you have any kind of techniques to explain it to the clients?
Well, you know, like for us, we have our framework, the localized framework. So we share that with everyone when they first reach out to us, and we let them know that this is how we are able to get conversion. And then we show them our performance results, and we say this is the result that we get from using a system like this. Now, if they're still in their initial stages, they might not necessarily internalize it, right? Which is it's kind of why for us it's lower budget first stage clients are not the best relationship for us. It's usually the second or third phase. They've come in, they've done the basics, their minimum viable product is out there, but it's not working the way they want. Those are usually like the most appropriate clients for our message. Um, but sometimes we'll have a client that's just starting out that knows the market really well, either because they've been in Japan for a while and before their current venture they have all kinds of scars from their previous ventures or whatever, right? So um we learn best from experience, right? Us simple humans. So sometimes the clients just have to go through it once um and then reach out to someone like us or Nanako's company to get them to the next stage, right? So yeah. Or
Yeah,
your company, Tyson. Your company too.
because some of the clients that we really like, it's startups who do have money, like they've raised millions, but they've successfully entered another market through localization. They really try to study the culture, really adapt their approach to it. And so like when you talk with them, it's like they're just like, just tell us what to do so we don't come back in 1 year asking for the same thing. It's like, so it's really sometimes I really like working with these go-to-market teams because I find they're more savvy and they're more open-minded about it because that's their whole job is go-to-market. Cool. And so translation pitfalls to avoid. So, oops, sorry. So I'll pass this off. So I think we've already talked about this one, but actually, Nanako, if you could tell us a little bit more about maybe the humor point. I think that would be pretty interesting.
I posted about it recently, didn't I?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, I haven't had the opportunity to work with a lot of playful brands. I know someone had asked for a case study. Um, there is one client. They're B2B, but their American branding is quite playful. And I think in the contact form, um, I took one of the fields that they used on their contact form in English, and it was like a casual way of asking, like, hey, so like, what's on your mind? To like ask for their message. It was like the field to enter their message to the company. And in Japanese, it was
Yeah.
a literal translation, and that just doesn't work. You have to ask formally, otoyawase naiyo or something that is more appropriate for a B2B
Yeah,
website.
I was gonna be that's pretty creepy. It's
It's a
pretty
little bit
creepy.
creepy, yeah. So there are certain words, vocabulary that you would use in certain situations in Japanese. Whereas I feel like in English, there's so many different ways of saying something, and it's all acceptable within a certain range, depending on the brand. You don't have that sort of flexibility so much in Japan. That's been my experience. How about yours, Nate?
Yeah, you get all kinds of really good stuff, right? Like I recently we had a a client who came to us who was in that phase two. They already localized their site and they were like, oh yeah, our site's good. We just need more conversions, right? So we open up their site and the translation of inquire was the katakana of Spanish. It was a Spanish word in katakana. And I was like, am I just like, am I just like, is my Japanese skill like not good enough? Like, is that a thing? So I like put it in like three different dictionaries. We cannot find that word, right? And I'm like, it's not even translation. It's like at that point. So
Uh,
there's all kinds of really interesting stuff that we come across
yeah.
as far as like translation goes, right?
Because I was helping one of my clients translation company using AI, and they made a video, and for the word take they used the word tosatsu, which is like taking upskirt shots or like taking hidden photos, and that was the software translated that as
Oh
take, I think. And like they're
no.
showing me, luckily I was just scanning the website, like I didn't need to. I was just like, yeah, I'll just check it out again. I was like, oh my God, did it really say that? It's like code red, change that. So luckily they didn't do any advertising, paid
Or,
ads especially.
or check your engagement rates. That might have been their best performing engagement.
Yeah.
Not that it
I'm on to you, Nate. I'm on to your tricks.
vanity metrics, engagement rate, right? Like, yeah. Um, Not totally vanity. Yeah, anyway. I think a lot of the literal translations are really just really direct, you know. I think we've touched on it a little bit. It's a lot of I think the people in the audience actually know this as well. So I won't spend too much time on it, but just translating exactly what the words are instead of saying like that's not a natural colloquial way to say that in Japanese. So um you need to get rid of it. But it's always this battle between like, oh, but the content in English says something so good. But then when we translate it in a more localized way, we lose all that nuance and that the energy is gone, the passion is gone, the 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 visceral nature of that adjective is gone, right? Like, so we can't help but just be like, oh, is it good enough? Is it really helping? But it's like you can't say it that way anyway. So there's of course a balance to it, right? But it's probably going to be more the tone of the copy that sets that energy as opposed to the words and the adjectives themselves, right? And so that's something we have to be really careful of with Japanese, right? So
And I guess with your clients, how have you explained to them maybe like we might have to tone things down a bit for like the humor and idiom side, like especially if they want to be like super playful. Have you had success with that?
yeah, I mean, we Nanako,
Go
you
ahead.
got something? Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. I mean, we've had I don't have a specific instance in mind that I'm remembering about that, but I mean, yeah, we've certainly had quite a few. Um, yeah, I was reminded a minute ago of a client. Actually, I think one of my team members is on the call and she'll know about this, but we had a client who we wrote all this copy in Japanese. And it wasn't even originating in English. It was like the original copywriter was a Japanese copywriter. We ideated from a point of Japanese, created it in Japanese, wrote the content in Japanese. And then the client came back and was like, "Oh, is this chokuyaku?" You know? And so it's kind of funny because you're always going to have scenarios where someone in the Japanese audience is going to be like, oh, that's translated, even if it's not, right? Um, oh, it's an international team. So, and I don't like that sentence. So this must be chokuyaku, right? Like we've
Gotcha, I see.
run into that, like,
They attribute it to that, yeah,
yeah,
even though it's not.
but it was crazy because the whole creative process was like wholly Japanese. And we just like we got that feedback in the team and we were all just like we couldn't help but laugh, It was like, yeah. Anyway, sorry, Hanako, go ahead. I think you
Yeah, just a couple things to add. So one of them is that for almost all of our clients, we start with a workshop. So we set their expectations and we let them know what is the standard in Japan. So we don't have to later on convince
Mm.
them of changing their tone in Japan. All of our clients get it, which we're really grateful for. But then sometimes those clients are bilingual or that their language skills are too good in both English and Japanese that they want to have a say and change the beautifully transcreated copy that my team has created. So kind of like your situation, Nate, it's like these marketers are not writers, but they know their brand well. And maybe they've also been, at that company for so long that, and they're used to seeing the same tagline in English that when they see it in Japanese as a completely different sentence, but conveying the exact same nuance, they think, oh no, this should be this, like that chokuyaku. So
yeah,
sometimes we come across the opposite problem, Nate, where they're like, no, 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 it should be using this word.
um,
Yeah.
yeah. It's funny, right? Because if you look at like people's resumes, like just here I go into analogy again. Sorry, guys. But like if you look at people's resumes, everyone's like strongest skill set is communication. And like we're all so bad at communication, like all of us, right? It's one of those kinds of things with copywriting as well. It's like, oh, I use words every day. So I'm probably pretty good at copywriting, right? So we all just feel like, oh, this is a place where I can have a say and be right? So it's hard. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sorry, one more thing. Depending on who's doing the translation or the writing, if they're really good at English and it's like a technical translation, I've seen people who have tendencies to honor the original English too much,
Mm.
that the actual written work in Japanese doesn't really make sense.
Yes.
And the person's Japanese. Um, that's why we actually prefer to work with writers that don't understand English. We have better output.
We had really short story. I'll keep it really short. But we got solar panels installed on our house like a few years back. And there's this company that offers like this little add-on thing that we wanted to use, long story short. And so the company that was installing it was like, oh yeah, we can install those, right? So they get the Japanese manual and they install it, and then it like stops working like the next day. right? And we're like, what's going on? And they came back like 3 times, and they're like reading the Japanese manual to like try to get it. And it was a translated manual from English, right? And it was translated so poorly that they kept making mistakes on how to set it up on the house.
Oh no.
It's like they're like, I was like, is it really hard to set up? You know, I'm like the guy's on his ladder on the side of my house, and I'm like, is it really complicated? And the guy just straight up goes, yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know what this Japanese means. You know what I mean? Anyway, but speaking of like technical translations, maybe being a little bit too close to the English, or yeah.
And so I think moving on, I want to pass this off to Nathan on a misaligned messaging.
Yeah. If you guys if you happen to be in my newsletter, if you're not, sign up, but I send a newsletter out each month, when time allows. A little bit delinquent, but anyway, once a month. And I kind of divulge a lot of the tools that we use internally. And if we as marketers understand that the way to get decision in Japan is to tell more, and to craft a broader variety of messages and use those more fluidly across all of our channels and our platforms. If you buy into that mindset, which we do, we need to figure out a way to develop those messages, right? So we developed something called we call it True VP. And this value path approach that is saying here is the initial beginning of True VP. And the idea is that when you buy a product, there's always a feature set, right? A very common one, one that you hear a lot about, and that many of you guys might know, is when the iPod, the music player iPod, came out ages ago. Sony was competing by talking about features, right? Like X, you know, X amount of megabytes, right? And like great sound and stuff like that, right? And then iPod came out, and um, it's very famous now, but they just said, like something like, I can't remember how many it was, but like 2,000 songs in your pocket, right? So it's the difference between a feature and a benefit or an outcome, right? So what Apple did is they took the feature and they extended it out on the value path, and they said, well, what sort of benefit can we offer customers as a result of that feature? And then going further, what sort of outcome can we get? So if you imagine a row of squares, and you identify your product, and you say, okay, what product am I going to focus on right now? And what one singular specific feature of that product am I going to expand, right? So this is an expansion opportunity, right? And you just plot that feature inside of that horizontal row of squares. And then you say, why does that matter? Like, it's just asking why over and over again. And as you go to the right, you'll eventually move from a feature to a benefit, from a benefit to an outcome, from an outcome to an experience. And then eventually you'll find a value at the end. And this is an exercise that we use to creatively expand on messaging, that we're really happy to share with everyone, to try out. But eventually it becomes something really silly. You can't necessarily use the values as your marketing copy. There's a really famous brand guy named Seth Godin, and he very famously has in one of his books, he talks about how the reason people buy drill bits for a drill, like for drilling holes, the reason people buy drill bits is because they want love and acceptance from their family and their friends, right? That's the value path from the start to the end, right? So obviously you might not create an ad campaign or like a social content piece that says like, you know, buy our drill bit, your friends and family will love you. Like, it's a little bit too extended, right? It's a little bit too much ground to like ask someone to like psychologically like cross over, right? But this is where I think if your messaging is not really hitting right, from whatever you've localized, you can try this process with your teams or with your peers, and try to build out more messages around that one singular feature. And if you can test those, then which platforms offer a ton of testing features now for creatives, you'll hopefully eventually find something that is maybe not a translation, but you're highlighting the same thing, right? So that's how we do it at Humble Bunny. That's how we expand creatively. This is one of our tools for that. So please steal it and use it, and let's all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Nanako, anything to follow on this or?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the very beginning of, when we were talking about the high context culture and just understanding Japanese consumer behavior. I think if you have a good understanding of Japanese consumer behavior, this all makes so much sense. And I love how, Nate, you create all these like systems and it's all like really digestible. And yeah, I love all of them.
I just want to know, Nanako, like by hanging those pictures on your wall, like do your friends love you more?
My photos, yeah.
Just I'm jokingly alluding to the Seth Godin. Yeah.
It does make it more personable.
I feel like Japanese people don't visit other people's homes, so they won't even have the opportunity to see it.
Gotcha.
That's localization.
Nice go.
Nice. Well spun.
And
Well spun.
so I think next we'll jump into common mistakes foreign companies make. And this one I'll pass to Nanako.
Sure. I can think of a really good example. We have a really great client, or shall I say, a client with a great Asia team. So the APAC team understand the importance of localization and they want to fix everything. But then global at head office, they don't really understand what's going wrong or why it's not working in Asian markets. So it's not just Japan, it's like South Korea and China. And they're more open now after so many internal discussions that what they're doing in Europe is not working in Asia. And I think it's difficult because they have the #1 market share for their sauce product in their respective markets. And they sponsor huge, sports teams, and that seems to work everywhere else. Why isn't it working in Japan? It's like, well, that's not Japanese people love baseball. And they're like, should we sponsor a baseball team in Japan? I'm like, I don't think you can. That's not how it works in this country. You can't just buy things and fix things quickly. Like, you have to build relationships. You have to understand your audience. How are they making purchase decisions in this country? And so it's a really fun project because I think that we're going to be able to help them from scratch for like a new go-to market strategy. And there's a lot of research that we're doing right now. But yeah, like if it's too foreign and it's not relatable to the average Japanese person, it's not going to work here.
And I'll say from the software perspective, working with startups, it's sometimes we find that the feature that is really the killer feature overseas is not the killer feature in Japan. And that before we go hardcore on marketing or sales, we really just need to figure out which of their features actually appeals to the Japanese audience. So sometimes it's been interesting where we had to focus the marketing on a different feature.
Interesting. Yeah. See, that's proper localization.
And
We have a
so,
lot of that on the e-commerce side as well. Fashion brands will come in and they'll be like, "Oh, this is our like
big
a
hit here.
product," something like that, and we end up selling like a ton of something else, or like they have a product, they're like, "Oh, rain jackets for kids, right? Kids don't really wear rain jackets, right? But what they do wear, I mean, that's a weird statement, but what I mean is that the most common rainwear item in Japan for children is the what's it called? I'm blanking. It drapes over their backpack. Um, totally blanking on the name of it right
What,
now.
not a poncho?
It's like a poncho, but it's got a hood and it comes over their body and it goes over their backpack too, right? Because kids in Japan have the randosel
Mhm.
backpacks, right? Um,
Kappa?
but yes, thank you, Ryohei.
Sorry,
Yes.
Sasuga.
Yohei-san typed it out.
Oh, thanks,
Yes.
Ryohei.
Um, Memory of a
You're
goldfish.
welcome.
But anyway, like we were like, let's make a kappa, right? They've got these gorgeous designs. They got this, and it's like it's not a difficult build, right? It's like a very simple product. And we're like, look, if you want to blow up here, we could design a kappa. Let's get local. Let's get like maybe even like a local designer to design like the pattern or whatever, right? Let's make it in Japan. Let's use all of these elements. Let's price it really reasonably as an entry product, right? Let's get people to understand the level of quality and detail that you put into your products, and then let's build allegiance to this product. So we were like super excited about the idea. We even like had a couple people, a couple illustrators like on the like ready to go, but like, you know, they're like they just wanted to push their bestsellers overseas, and um I think it's a little bit of number one here and it's a little bit of number two. So gonna have to change things up. So
And how about me neglecting local competition?
I think my example just now was the competition, the rainwear makers in Japan. They all have kappa, right? Especially if they're targeting kids, right? That's a good example, right? Like competitively, the most popular product, they don't offer it, right? So yeah. Nanako, maybe you have other
Yeah.
examples for the competition.
Oh, I just have a point to say that I heard that a huge majority of the world's oldest companies are all Japanese companies,
Hmm.
which means businesses stay in business for a really long time and they have a history of building relationships with people in Japan for decades, maybe centuries, right? There are companies that have been around for like 500 years in Japan, apparently, and that's not very common in other countries. So just imagine that much legacy of a particular brand in a particular market for a particular product, and it's ingrained into the Japanese consumer's mind. How do you even compete against that, right? Especially in a country where, like craftsmanship and just the quality of the output and the amount of passion and dedication that goes into making products in Japan. And people really emphasizing and choosing products that are made in Japan. That's been my experience here. People love things that are made in Japan. Like, why should somebody consider something that's not made in Japan? It has to offer something that the Japanese don't already have. And if you can spot that market gap, then you'll probably do really well in Japan. But, you know, there are some companies that don't do enough research and they think just because they are the number one market share in Germany for food delivery or whatever, and they come to Japan and they think they can beat the market, it's like there are already so many food recipe delivery services in Japan. And food
And
is the best in Japan. Why do you think you can do better here?
and I think there's two questions in the chat where I think the person has maybe a product or a service that isn't used yet in Japan, or they have a unique approach at it. And I think it kind of relates to this topic we're talking about neglecting. So maybe there's a reason that product doesn't exist already. And on the topic of neglecting local competition, it's sometimes I think assuming that the local competition has not tried it yet. So there's a possibility they have actually tried it and they didn't find demand. So I think that's another way of neglecting local competition, that assuming that they haven't tried it and there's something not there. And it kind of goes back to this topic of, or at least in software we call it product market fit. Is there a fit for your product for the Japanese market? And so I think for the audience members who I think wrote that question, I think that's the key question is let's say I think you would like us to give maybe like a solution of how to like bring your product to market. But I think the first question to ask is that actually a problem? Like, are you actually solving a problem that people have or think they have? And are able to understand. And I feel a lot of companies, they don't get success because, let's say, they try to create a problem which people don't actually have in Japan or feel it is a problem. And so in that case, it's the problem of timing. So
We've had
maybe, sorry, maybe last thing I'll say is maybe your product is better, is what the person's needs, but maybe the timing's not right because the people aren't ready for that solution right now.
Yeah, we've had a number of brands come in with something new, something that required an educational component, you know? And it's always really challenging because you're trying to potentially change the way Japanese people live their lives in the day to day by offering something that potentially offers the same solution but is different, you know? Like a great example is client that we had previously where, you know, Japanese people use eye drops when they have eye trouble. And this brand was coming in with a wipe, you know, and they're, you know, convinced that the quality was much better, ingredients were much better, um, you know, and it's not invasive like eye drops are, right? But one of the biggest culture shocks that I had in Japan when I first came was that the proliferation of eye drops. Like a lot of people use eye drops. And I'm, you know, like I'm I'm a 6-year-old in a 41-year-old's body. Like when you like give me eye drops, I'm like running away. I'm like my eyes are like fluttering and I like, you know what I mean? Like I'm such a wimp about it, right? Because
All right.
we just don't we just don't use I never used eye drops when I was little. So like I understand the sentiment, but like
Yes.
Japanese people are like bam, 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 just like go ahead, Tyson. Looks like you've got something. Like go ahead.
No, it's just silly. It's or from being from Hawaii, I sometimes feel like I'm an eye drops dealer. So like when what was the souvenir I'm asked for the most from Japan? It's actually eye drops.
Eye drops.
Yeah, I was asked for eye drops, Japanese eye drops, the ones that hurt your
Yeah,
eyes.
exactly.
Yeah, I was asked often as well.
Where it so in that case it does solve a need for people, but they probably is not enough people with that problem in Hawaii to actually to bring your brand.
Yeah, so it was a big challenge, you know, like they needed a little bit of budget to build awareness and you know, we recommended a number of things related to like you know, getting like doctors and things like that on board and these sorts of things, right? So, you know, you have to come at it from a bunch of different ways and it'll cost a little bit of money and it'll take a little bit of time. And you should only be doing that, just to allude to what you guys were saying earlier, you should only be doing that if you know that like people are actually like, oh, I don't like using eye drops, but I don't have another solution, right? But um I think Japanese people like eye drops. I don't know, there's something, I don't know. They're very
They're
comfortable.
great.
There you go. Yeah.
So yeah, so just getting back to I think there's a couple questions on that. It's you really need to start with the pain point of the local market. I mean, you could try to bring your product in there, that or product or service there, but there's just so many fail cases where they try to like push as opposed to pull. And it just could be a timing issue. where you're and like what Nate said, like their product or what the product Nate introduced, like maybe it is actually superior, better quality, but is it better timing? And
You
so
know, it could be timing, it could be just a more rigid culture thing that the timing will never be a thing. It just doesn't they don't need it, right? So I think if you're working for a brand, just for everyone, if you're working for a brand and someone in global is like, hey, we got this product selling like crazy overseas, why don't we bring it into Japan? It's like maybe not a red flag, but at least an orange flag, you know, like okay, why do we believe that would work here? Like where's the data that says that people are struggling with the current solutions? And just a bit of due diligence on that level, I guess, is the takeaway, right?
hmm.
Before you kind of go for it, right?
So yeah, and I'm glad we talked because I think this is a topic that I think a lot of people in the audience are probably thinking about. Like, I want to introduce this product to the Japanese market, and like, how can I ask Nate and Nanako how? And sometimes the first question is like, should you even bring it to the market? Is probably the
Mhm.
more important question than how to sell it.
I think marketers like we all have to protect ourselves to a big level too, you know? Because like we take an idea from someone else and we get psyched up on it too. It's like, oh, this is exciting, right? Like I can bring a new product to the market, right? Like I can whatever, I can have this great accomplishment, achievement, right? But it's like if we screw it up, it's not them that screwed up because they recommended the wrong product. It's us because we didn't market it properly and we didn't achieve the line. So I think like we have to protect ourselves, you know, like and make sure that like there's actually an achievement to be had, right? Before we get too deep into it. So
And uh I think marketing you do have, but more so in sales. I do receive a lot of requests like, can you sell our product and like a pay for success? And it's like, no.
mm.
It's let's say you guys don't have a localization, you don't have a support team, like you guys have not made, and so it's so what I mean to say is it's it really to work on commission, or like I guess as a marketer, as an agency, or even helping with sales, like it's just best to work with things that work. And I guess I'll jump into what works well in Japan. And if anyone has questions, and I'm sorry, for I think Hikaru, we will be sending these slides in an email afterwards to everyone. So we'll definitely get that to you. And I think there's some other ones I'll address later. But if you have any like big questions, feel free to post that here. Oh, and hey Ken, I think the message you sent, it just went to me. So you can send that to everyone. I just and sorry. And so that's what works well. So I'll pass that to Nathan.
Okay. Sorry, I was responding to a comment. What works well? It's gonna depend obviously on the industry you're in and the product and what you're bringing in. Well, we obviously know that like you have to have a good product fundamentally, right? Like Nanako was saying earlier, you're up against the made in Japan issue, right? So why would and why should people choose your product? So having good quality and having good customer support behind it is obviously an important part. But if we're talking about um like increasing the amount of conversion and increasing the amount of like hitting your KPIs online, um, you know, there's obviously all the messaging stuff and expanding on the messaging that we've been talking about. But you know, there's a lot of I don't know if you guys saw it, but Nanako had a really great presentation a few months back at the Digital Marketers Meetup. Um, and she talked a lot about brands that are really doing a good job. Um, Starbucks, Costco, these sorts of things. So I don't think that being a foreign brand intrinsically is gonna directly connect to um your performance. So I think that the first step is to realize that like just because we're foreign and we have this foreign base doesn't necessarily mean that we're better, and we're certainly not necessarily better, right? Um, but then the brands, especially kind of consumer brands that come in, they're very much adapting to the Japanese culture, um, things like pop culture, seasonality, these sorts of things. So it says on the screen here, Starbucks. That's a really great example of how they have made a success. And there's actually, I don't know if maybe it's not that well known, but there was some research done last year about why Japanese people like Starbucks. And the number one reason the Japanese people said they like Starbucks is because they look forward to the seasonal drinks. Has nothing to do with anything that intrinsically existed with Starbucks before they entered the market. The number one reason is the cultural adaptation that they made. That's really powerful. And if you look through the list of all of their answers, none of them have anything to do with the fact that they're foreign, out of like 8 answers. So whatever that mindset is of like we're foreign, we're better, like not anymore, right? Not in Japan, right? So really becoming one with Japan and being local, which is different from localizing, being local, right? We have 4 seasons in Japan. Tyson, maybe not you in Hokkaido. I'm not sure. You might only have 2, but in the region we have 4. Um, so yeah, I think that works well. You can remove the foreign from the formula, right? And then just think about, yeah, product market fit, having the right messaging, expanding on the messaging, being culturally appropriate via things like seasonality or having something based on the calendar. There's lots of the really obvious one. Another really obvious one is Valentine's Day and White Day, So, you have to, if you're selling chocolate, you need to adapt to those periods, right? So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. And Nanako, I'll give you if there's anything to add. Sorry, before that, Bill, I believe, Bella answered your question of is there an urban dictionary equivalent in Japan? And I think it was Zokugo Dictionary. I posted the link that Bella posted, so thank you for that, Bella. Tristan mentioned that sometimes that when his staff translate his English into Japanese, it becomes really bland and boring and it doesn't have the same essence. My one thought there is we found, at least when we do translation for like language school websites and you run a language school, is that sometimes the owner, or what the school owner thinks of, those concepts don't exist in Japanese. And so like our translator would just come to us and be like, I don't know what this even means. Like how the hell do I translate? And the solution we found was we just asked ChatGPT, please change the English. Please change this to how a high schooler would understand this. And then we would just use Claude AI to translate it into Japanese, then localize it from there. But we found that Claude AI is much better than ChatGPT for translation. But that's how we've had to translate English school owners who talk very technically, or like we just had to ask ChatGPT, can you please change it to how a high schooler would speak? Just because it couldn't be translated into Japanese.
Just
Okay.
really, really quick, while you were talking about that, we did like a deep analysis of translations as well with our lead copywriter. And I was just pulling that up to see if we were getting similar results. Um, Let me just share it really quickly.
That would
Google
be awesome.
Google Translate, um, a lot of unnatural Japanese. So yeah, ChatGPT 4.0, um, Yeah, also low quality. Let me see. The sentence quality was poor, she was saying for that one.
Yeah.
Deep L was better than Google and Chat GPT. It's a little bit better, but it wasn't good at adapting a tone. Like the tone was a little strange.
Mm.
And then the winner was Claude. Um, but not by much. Um, so most natural language. But our analysis was that even with Claude, like we were only able to get like around 40% quality. Um, so lifting the quality from 40 to something, obviously perfectionism is impossible. So like, okay, if we're targeting 85 or 90% acceptable rate, you know what I mean? Then there's still a huge amount of sort of human intervention required to get that quality up. So anyway, just sharing that with you guys if it may be of value to you.
Yeah, we found the same, and then we found ChatGPT was, I haven't tested enough on Claude, but we found ChatGPT was decent at dumbing down the language to make it easier to then transfer it to Claude because ChatGPT's we had the same experience with our testing that the ChatGPT translations, they were not natural.
Yeah, I will note that all of ours are singular tests, like base copy platform, one single output. But I think combining it is kind of like the next level of it, right?
Yeah, and so I think that's how we had to do it. Cool. No, thanks Nathan for sharing. I'm glad. So I did that we're not the only ones who thinks that Claude is it's I mean it's much better than ChatGPT. We didn't compare it with DeepL. For some reason I forgot to do that. So I'm glad you shared that.
Is it called DeepL or is it
Or
called, we call it DeepL? I don't know. Anyway, if anyone
so
knows, just know.
I think it's officially DeepL, but we call it DeepL.
so I think they could use Nathan and Nanako's branding support. Uh,
Yeah. Can I just add one story to the
sure.
adaptability? So I go camping sometimes, and my husband bought like a barbecue set for camping from Logos. But
Oh yeah.
do you know which one? It's the Takibi set.
Oh no,
And
sorry, I know the brand, but go ahead.
and Logos is not Japanese, but they have this one barbecue like fire pit set that's made just for Japan, and it's called Takibi.
Oh, interesting.
And it's great because most campsites in Japan don't allow you to build campfires directly on the ground. So if, I don't know if anyone goes camping, but everyone has like some tray thing where you build your fire on. So it's not directly on the ground. And the Takibi set allows you to have your Takibi, the fire pit on the actual tray, but you can also barbecue. And there's all these like additions, and you can like hang things from it, like a pot, and you can cook, but you can also have your fire. And I just thought it was a brilliant way to introduce a product that works well in Japan. And I think it sells really well in Japan. So know your
No, thank
market, know
yeah,
the
no.
regulations.
Tyson, can you you're so good at bringing community together. Can we do like an exclusive invite to all the 40 participants and like do like a big camping thing? Because I love camping. Let's go camping.
That'd be fun.
Sweet. That'll be a fun party.
Great.
We can talk about funny Japanese language uses.
Marketing stuff or yeah.
And by the way, just the listeners, the chat's really good. I think people have been sharing examples, ideas, like even like the eye drop. I think there's like a whole conversation on the eye drops. It's really interesting. So, thank you everyone who's participated. Like, I'm loving it. And so yeah, we'll finish out with some tips for localization. And I'll pass this one to Nate.
Okay. Yeah, long form, mixing long form and short form is a great way to do it. You know, I'll kick the dead horse. I keep saying it, but expanding on the things that you're saying and thinking about um things that you've not said yet can be quite valuable. So making sure that you have just more content. Um, you know, Japanese is kind of like it's like a I don't know if everyone knows about these, but when I was little at the library in my elementary school, we had these choose your own adventure books, you know, and you would read like 4 or 5 pages, and then at the end it would give you two options, and it was like, you know, do you want do you want to try to jump the canyon with the horse, or do you want to walk around or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like, and I think like we have to let Japanese people have that kind of option, you know, like give them options, let them choose their own path. And the way to do that is just to give them as much information as you can so that they can find essentially what they're looking for. Um, Nurturing is another thing. I think like one of the things that we use internally is we always try to find a soft CTA. So a lot of brands come to us with hard CTAs, which is like inquire or purchase or whatever it is. But we know that there's a little bit more of a reservation. So coming up with a different kind of CTA, a soft CTA, you can even come up with a third kind of CTA, which is more about community, um, or a smaller purchase, like an entry type of product, like I was talking about earlier with the kappa. Um, and yeah, so these are some ways to better localize. Social proof, this is huge. This is the one I think we can all connect with in Japan, is that there's so much social influence on the way products and things are chosen. So get social proof, but also make sure that you're expanding on it, you know, like get video, get short quotes, get long quotes, try a word map, um, you know, do star ratings, right? Um, but then expanding beyond social proof, it might not necessarily be another customer's voice, but they're proof that you're vetted and of quality. So these are things like certifications, awards, um, having, you know, a logo grid that tells about the partnerships that you have. There's a reason that brands do so many collaborations, you know. A clothing brand like Green Label or United Arrow does a collaboration with Loro Piana, right? And it's like Loro Piana wants to piggyback off the presence of United Arrows in the fashion space, right? So these sort of associations can also do really well. You go to any clothing store in Japan and there's always like these, they don't look like anything new, but it's like, oh, it's the New Balance 996 and a slightly different color, right? And it's the same thing, but it's just like it's this sense of collaboration. So find ways to be collaborating um and build your social proof that way, right? Localize contact forms, start with the last name. Um, Nanago's talked a lot about this, but yeah, last name first, give some space so that they can put in the katakana, the furigana, right? Don't do like imasugu konyu or something like that. Like try something. Um, that's
By now.
actually that's actually interesting. That the idea that buy now is not as strong as like add to cart is also something that's being globally tested as well. So there are two mindsets in the marketing space. There's the mindset of like buy now is the best. And you'll find all kinds of content on the web that says buy now is the best because we tested it, you know, across 7 people and it won, right? Not conclusive or whatever it is. But then there's a whole nother mindset of like add to cart is better, right? So I think the global expectation about the button being honest is changing as well, but definitely in Japan as well. Try to test that out. Um, and then number 5 is that soft CTA concept I talked about earlier, offering like a download or a demo, or if you can offer something human um, as a soft touch before the purchase, that might be an interesting thing to test out, especially in a B2B or a consumer service lead generation type space. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna post the offer the document download instead of demos because I help a lot of SaaS companies. That is something that's the first thing we always introduce is uh, and so the technique that works well for us is you do AdWords, you get them to go to your website, they download your sales document, you call them up, schedule a meeting, and that's how you do SaaS.
Hmm.
And I've included my sales deck course on how to do that for the Jeff. So I've created a course how to create that download documents deck. Like it works for a lot of my clients, and we've had a lot of success with it. And it wasn't planned, but Nathan, thanks for bringing up number 5.
Cool.
Nanako, do you have any other thoughts?
I think, Nate, you covered everything. Just something interesting that I've noticed lately is the amount of hand-holding in all aspects of Japanese life that happens all the time. I think I mentioned this in the last talk that I did a couple of weeks ago. But did anyone go through the airport during the pandemic? When you
I
arrive, there are like 50 people holding signs telling you that the COVID testing is this way. And it was just so excessive. I couldn't believe it. I think I was the only person that was just laughing the whole time I was walking down the long corridor of Haneda Kuko. I'm like, what are all these people doing? Don't they have other jobs to do? It's so inefficient. But I think anything new, anything out of the ordinary, I feel like in this country, people have feel an innate need to let you know and guide you because they don't want you to feel inconvenienced or lost. And so I think it's the same thing with the websites,
Hmm.
right? That's why you have all like just so much information. I think like for myself at least, like it's really just scrolling through a website and being, you especially if it's an intuitive website, you just kind of know where to go and what to do. But on a Japanese website, like for every section, it tells you, it's really clear what information you should pay attention to and what are all the different options that you can take on that website or that section of the website.
Hmm.
And, there's a lot of convincing that goes on because people are wary. You have to build trust with them through all of these social proofs that you mentioned, Nate. And to answer somebody's question, I think it helps to have a face and a name, even if it's just like maybe the first name. But it helps to put real people and link that and their valid experiences with the product. Yeah, it's a long process, but every single section is necessary. I recently was told by a client, like, hey, I don't think our landing page is, working because it's too long. And I'm like, it's not long enough, actually.
There's a like I have a really interesting story. So one of my friends is and it's related to this idea that like everything is hand holding, right? And it doesn't matter the situation, but it's like we will guide you through every micro step of the process. My friend is a professional bass player in Japan, and he's like really high up there, right? Like he was touring with SMAP. We got free tickets to see SMAP, like
Wow.
my wife and I. Um, but he's done like backing for like Ed Sheeran, like all these people. He's really amazing, right? And he was doing backing bass for Taylor Swift in Japan. And he told me, I don't know if you guys know this, but Taylor Swift apparently has a great sense of humor. Um, he was at like they were doing like their pre-show whatever thing, and they were being so specific with Taylor Swift about like where to stand, like how to do things. And she was like apparently she was laughing at it because it was like I'm I know, I got this, right? Like I'm a musician. And apparently at one point she was um, like started teasing them. But they're Japanese, so they didn't know. So like they were like, okay, here, hold the mic. And she was like holding it upside down. And she's like this, is this okay? You know what I mean? Like actually trolling them. Um, but yeah, just thought it was a really, a really funny story. Kind of endearing as well, right? But at all levels, they're like telling you what to do and how to do things. And um, yeah, which is interesting because all cultures are paradoxes, all of them. So we talked earlier about high context. High context would imply that certain things don't need to be said, certain things don't need to be done, certain things don't need to be put out there because the context is shared between the two parties, right? That would imply that all of this delicate hand-holding would not necessarily be necessary because we get it. But somehow that's still a part of the way you do things in Japan, right? In the marketing space as well. So I think we all have to be very prepared for the paradoxes that exist in Japan, such as that. So it's the right way to do things until it's not, essentially.
And thank you both very much. I think we could go on for all day. And I'll leave it off. I guess Nate and Nanako, you can maybe mention your name again, where they can find you, and what services you offer again. And I'll let Nanako go first.
Sure. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks, Tyson, for inviting me. It's such an honor to be here with Nate. I'm Nanako Aramaki. I work for Tableau, and we help global brands to localize for Japan. And I post tips. I want to say weekly, but I'm taking a little break right now. I will post next week. They're really just bite-sized, fun facts about what you can do to improve your marketing to resonate with the Japanese audience. So if you're interested, please follow me. I'm sure a lot of you already see my content. But yeah, please connect and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have through DMs.
Awesome. And Nate.
Yeah, thanks Tyson for having us on, and Nanako. It's always Nanako and I's first touch base was at Indian curry restaurant, and we kind of geeked out over you know, philosophy types, which was cool. But it's an honor to talk alongside Nanako, who's such a beacon in the market for better marketing. So thank you, Nanako, for your contribution to the broader Japan marketing space. And then Tyson, also thanks for inviting me. You're always so supportive of me and my business and throwing us potential work and inviting me to stuff and also serving the community really well. So thanks so much. I'm gonna put my link to my newsletter. Just sent it. So if you guys want to sign up for the newsletter, Nanako was mentioning that we have a lot of frameworks and tools that we use to actually achieve real conversion and real performance in the Japanese market. And I share a lot of how we do that in that newsletter. So if you want to sign up and get some of that information, I'll also put a link in the newsletter as well for Localize and the 8 lenses of that if you've not seen that yet. So use it to understand the Japanese market a little bit more about how we can rework our marketing messages to come at it from many angles, right? But also use it to sort of inform your seniors or other people that you're working with so that they understand the market better, so that you can kind of convey your points in a better way to them, right? Because that's a big challenge for a lot of us is, it's either our clients or it's our seniors who don't always understand what we're trying to say to them. So hopefully we can kind of support each other in that. I'm also on LinkedIn, so feel free to follow me there. And our company is we do a couple channels. We do SEO, we do advertising, we also do e-commerce and e-commerce marketplaces. But our focus is really on how do we get the 96.9% of businesses that are underperforming in the Japanese market to improve their conversion performance? So if conversion and lead generation and online sales are not going as you want them to, please reach out to us and we'll tell you how we can implement things like TrueVP, TrueTrack, Localize into a better marketing strategy for you or other brands that you're working with.
And I think 34 of 38 attendees, I think, attended all the way to the end. So I think that's a testament to let's see how useful the content is. And yeah, it's you, Nate and Nanako are super pros. And thank you so much for your time. And we'll be this is recorded, and we'll be sending the slides, the video, and we'll be sending the links to everyone by email. So if you registered for the event, you will be getting the content. And if you know anyone who wants to incorporate in Japan, I'm the guy to talk to. Or if anyone needs a good sales deck or kind of sales advisory, I can definitely help with that as well. And thank you so much, everyone, and have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone.